Alright, so Nate Diaz, who is of course one half of the legendary Diaz brothers, Nick and Nate. People love these guys in mixed martial arts. Nick Diaz, I mean, he is an old school legend, and some of the performances that he put on, that fight that he had with Paul Daly in Strikeforce, lying down on the floor when he fought Anderson Silva and just taking the piss out of a legend like Anderson Silva, shows what a legend he is. And of course, his younger brother Nate Diaz came from The Ultimate Fighter, had a really good career, shot to absolute stardom when he defeated Conor McGregor and shocked the world and said, "I ain't surprised, motherfuckers," right?
Nate Diaz, you just shook up the world. How's that feel? Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
Nate Diaz, the last time we saw him in the UFC, it was a little while ago, but if we listen to Nate Diaz, he says that he might come back. Last time we saw him, of course, he got the guillotine choke over Tony Ferguson in September 2022. It's 3 and a bit years since we last saw Nate Diaz. And if you listen to him, he's coming back. He was back to the UFC and he's got his eyes firmly set on the one and only Paddy the Baddy Pimblett.
What up, Nate? What up? Who you fighting next?
I'm looking at Pimblett. Probably Pimblett.
That is correct. He was hitting the bag. He got asked about it. He said, yeah, I'm looking at Paddy Pimblett, right? That's a crazy shout. Listen, Nate Diaz, I'm a fan of the guy. He's always getting into little skirmishes here and there. He's a real one. He doesn't mess around. If you talk shit, you chat shit, you get banged. Simple as that.
I'm gonna fight your fucking ass.
I like that about Nate Diaz. You know where you stand, and in this modern day and age where people are so fast to talk shit online, well, if you talk shit to Nate Diaz, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a water bottle to the head. You're going to get attacked. His whole crew are going to jump on you. If you're Jake Paul, you're going to get jumped. Speaking of Jake Paul, he believes that Anthony Joshua is going to knock him out.
You might get his ass knocked out, but that'd be downfall.
Ooh, that's not a big revelation. Anthony Joshua, if this is a real fight, is going to knock out Jake Paul, regardless of what Mighty Mouse says, regardless of what Tyson Fury's picking, right? We all know if it's a real boxing fight, then Jake Paul's going to get flatlined. Anyway, we're not talking about that. We're talking about Nate Diaz saying that he wants to fight Paddy Pimblett. That ain't going to happen, right? Think about it. Paddy is undefeated in the UFC. He's fighting Justin Gaethje on the first fight night in Paramount, UFC 324, going down in Las Vegas, Nevada. I will be there. A day later, I'm flying off to Australia to UFC 325. The fights will be coming thick and fast. Of course, Saturday night, by the time you watch this, it is the final fight of the year. Then we're not going to have any UFC action for the next 6 weeks, okay? So make sure you tune in. Myself, Laura Sankar, Brendan Fitzgerald will be commentating Brandon Royval taking on Manel Cobb. But anyway, when Paddy returns after that drought over the winter period, when you're all probably doing your dry January and you're all back in the gym and you're all trying to not be a fat bastard because you overindulged in Christmas, the first fight night is Paddy versus Justin. First of all, Paddy's got to win that fight against Justin Gaethje. If he does, he becomes the interim champion of the world. So that's what Nate Diaz wants. I think if Paddy loses to Justin Gaethje, right, coming off a loss, I don't think Nate Diaz would be interested. But he's calling out Paddy Pimblett, and that wouldn't happen because if Paddy does win, he's then the interim champion of the world. Who does he fight next? It would be Ilia Topuria. Maybe an Arman Tsarukyan if the man can get a shot. Anyway, right, that isn't going to happen. Nate Diaz, love the guy in the cage. He's got a massive following. I think he should be back in the UFC. Not messing around and boxing influencers and stuff like that.
All right, you're playing touch butt with that dork in the park.
Using his jiu-jitsu, using his skills, using everything that he's got in the UFC, in mixed martial arts. But of course, Nate Diaz is no spring chicken. But if he is going to come back, he's 40 years old. I just looked it up. Holy cow. He's 40 years old. You got to think his best days are behind him. However, there is one fight out there, and yes, this is going to sound crazy, but Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler is heavily rumored to be going down at the White House, okay? They were both on Fox Sports. They were talking about it. They both announced it, okay?
Conor McGregor want to be a part of that.
I'm on it.
You're on it.
I'm on it. Well,
Who are you fighting?
I am. This is me. Michael Chandler.
But don't count your chickens before they're hatched, because I tell you what, they want to put on the biggest fight card of all time at the White House, which they are going to do. And apparently it is going to be something like 8 title fights at the White House, which will be crazy. But I tell you what would you rather watch? Ask yourself this and be honest. Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, right? Who's lost 4 out of his last 6. No disrespect, Michael Chandler. Or Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz, right? Ask yourself that question. I think the answer is very obvious. I think we would all rather see Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz 3. Of course, they are 1-1. The rubber match needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen in the UFC, maybe it happens down the line when they're out the UFC and they're both in the 50s, right? That fight needs to happen at some point in a car park, in a pub, in a restaurant, or better yet, at the White House in the UFC's octagon. That would be a fight that we all want to see. And I think it kind of needs to happen. Anyway, so that's what Nate Diaz should be targeting. That's what he should be talking about. Saying, never mind Michael Chandler, man. I can't do a Nate Diaz impression, right? He should say, never mind Michael Chandler. He's lost his last few fights. We're 1-1. Let's go. Let's do it at the Oval Office, on the White House lawn, wherever the fight's going to take place, right? That's what they should be calling for. Anyway, speaking of Conor McGregor, you might have I saw it on TMZ earlier today as I was scrolling Twitter, having my steak and eggs. The man just got married at the Vatican City, okay? So congratulations to Conor McGregor and his whole family. Of course, he doesn't do things, he doesn't mess around, right? Of course, if he's going to get married, of course, he's going to do it at the Vatican City. What a location, right? Congratulations to him. He's been on quite the journey. Remember, he said recently that he did some, forget what you call it, but he went down and did some mushrooms or something like that, ayahuasca or something like that, and he's reborn, okay? Fair play to him, fair play. I do want to see him at the White House. I do think the sport of mixed martial arts is a better place with Conor McGregor involved. Simple as that. The man brings in the eyeballs, he brings the excitement, he brings a lot of attention, and at the White House versus Nate Diaz, that fight would be sensational. And if Conor McGregor comes back and he's motivated and he does fight Nate Diaz or Michael Chandler or whoever it is, remember, that fight's going to be at 170 pounds, right? Conor probably doesn't want to come back and make 155, even though he is looking a little bit lean these days. There was a video of him online. He was hitting the bag and he looks like he's trimmed down a little bit. Nate Diaz fights at 170. Michael Chandler said he'll fight at 170, 155. Conor McGregor said, you'll do what you're told. Simple as that.
You want to do 185? I'll do 185.
You'll do what you're told.
It was a good line on The Ultimate Fighter. It's going to be at 170. And Conor McGregor said he wants to be a 3-weight division champion, okay? I don't know if that's going to happen. Of course, he wants to be the first person to do that.
I for sure want to crack that 70-pound belt to go for the Triple Crown.
And of course, if you're going to win over Chandler or Diaz, right, it would only be big things for Conor McGregor. The big thing is, can he get the win? We don't know. We'll wait and see how that happens. However, there's a lot of contenders at the 170-pound division. Of course, Islam Makhachev, he's the champion of the world. He's one of the best fighters on the planet. There's Ian Gary out there. Kamaru Usman's been talking. Apparently, he says he's going to get a shot. Islam Makhachev said that he would rather fight Kamaru Usman than Ian Gary because it's a bigger fight and it's a tougher fight. And I think stylistically, of course, for the champ, Makhachev, of course Usman is a tougher fight, and of course he defended the belt a number of times and he's one of the best welterweights the sport's ever seen. So anyway, there it is. I'm going to Vegas. Brandon Royval is taking on Manel Cobb, so I've got to pack, I've got to get to the airport. It's a good fight card. It's the last one of the year. Tune in, check it out. Who wins, Brandon Royval or Manel Cobb? Obviously, I can't give any predictions because I'm commentating the fight. What do you think about Nate Diaz coming and saying that he's going to take on Paddy Pimblett? And do you think it should be Nate Diaz, or should it be McGregor taking on Michael Chandler, as they've talked about for about 27 years these days? Will the fight ever happen? Will Conor come back? Will it be on the White House? Answer all these questions for me, please, in the comment section. I've got to pack, I've got to get to the airport. Thanks for watching. Subscribe and ring the bell. Take a breath, Bisping. Whew, I got to go. See you later.